Hello everybody and welcome to the list video here at Playing Board Games. I'm joined once again by Daniel from Quick Learner. How's it going?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk about 5 cards that we love to evangelize about. If you don't know what this means, basically cards that we can't stop talking about, preaching about, or as you said, gonna knock on our neighbor's door and say, hey, have you heard about this card?
And we're not going to stop doing it now. This is an excuse to yell at you about not playing these cards.
After my neighbor told me to stop coming to their door and talking about these cards, I was like, okay, I think we should make a video about it because I need to get it out there. So why don't we dive in and start with your 5. These aren't really in any order, but they are. Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about this. Yeah. I heard.
At the end of this video, I'm going to guess which are the ones that Justin had on his list. So. I have it right here in this envelope, so we'll pull it out.
On it.
Yeah, and we'll see if I was right, because I've been watching your videos for too long. I should know, but actually might have something completely different, so that'll be fun to find out. I mean,
honestly, there's probably going to be one that I'm going to see, and I'm going to be like, oh, right, you're right. That should have been here. But I like this. So now, sorry, I forgot about that. Why don't we go to your number 5, which is...
Newspaper 2. I think this card is really, really good, and people don't talk about it enough. It gets you extra clues, and you know what? It says that you have to have no clues to discover the extra one. That matters sometimes, but most of the time it doesn't. There's a lot of scenarios in the game that actually make you spend the clues all the time. All the time. I've been playing Joe Diamond recently, and that whole clause of, you put a clue on the highest shroud location, I'm not going to say it never matters, but you usually can finagle it where you spend the clue first, and then you have no clues, you play the card, and you're good. This card just makes every time you get clues after you spend them, get you an extra one. I think it's fantastic. The +2, while investigating, is okay. That's the level 0 version, but this upgraded version, I think, is amazing in a lot of campaigns. Not every campaign.
Yeah, I also think this card is actually is very good. It's... because, the question is, how many deductions do you need to make this card worth it? And I think everyone's going to say you need to trigger this twice. But in my mind, if you trigger it, once, you've basically just, got the thing, and then the next one after that is gravy, right? So, 2 is when you...
one.
Yeah, it costs one resource. It costs one resource. And I know Travis is a big fan of Newspaper, even though he doesn't play it because he... doesn't like to fall into the trap of playing Survivor because he always feels drawn to scavenging. But this card is very good with scavenging because it also has 2 book icons on it. So you can commit it, get +2, get it back, and then a future scavenge, and then just put it into play that way too. It's a very, very nice card.
Mm-hmm. And you can do some clever things with it, like I said, about spending clues, but also other effects that get you additional clues, or 1 clue testlessly. You can get an extra one. You don't even have to take a test to get that extra clue. So the 2 parts of this card are kind of separate, right? I think a lot of people look at the +2 while investigating and think that the second part has to trigger off of that investigation, but it doesn't. You can throw this into, I've done it in Silas Marsh with True Understanding, and you just get 2 clues that you had no business getting otherwise.
Yeah. No, that's very true. I think if you're playing Innsmouth, this is a really nice card to bring to Innsmouth, because they do have newspapers in Innsmouth, so you can use that for that.
Yep.
But yeah, no, it's because I played a Press Pass in Innsmouth, and I was like, this campaign gets rid of your clues, and this one would also just shine in that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a very nice choice to have here. All right, let's go to my number 5, which is Stunning Blow. I'm not loving this card just because of the lizard getting whacked in the head and going blah. Not the flavor text that just says thud. Not because it's practice. These are all very nice things, but because this card represents an insane amount of action compression that is kind of insane for a level 0 card. And spoiler alert, most of the stuff that I care about in this list is gonna revolve around action compression, because especially at level 0, that's a very, very powerful effect. So what this does is it allows you to fight an enemy, and if you succeed that attack, you automatically evade that enemy. So that's 2 actions right there. You're dealing a damage, and you're also evading the enemy. But let's just say, for example, this was an enemy that your ally was holding, right? Like maybe like Rex Murphy, as he always does, says, "Please help me. I can't solve this all by myself." And you, as Mark Harrigan, go, "Fine." And then you just, well, Mark Harrigan can't play this card, but let's just imagine he could for some reason because he's just the hunky guy I'm thinking of. But like you use this to fight the enemy that Rex Murphy is holding, and that enemy is just laid out, and you just don't need to solve that turn. Likewise, with breaking and entering, an ability to just evade an enemy that someone else is holding while also advancing the game is a very, very powerful effect. And this is a very nice thing to have at level 0 in anyone who can run it. Like, I'm never upset by someone playing a stunning blow. It's always just like, wow, this card's incredible.
One of the fun things about this as a skill compared to, say, Cheap Shot, which does the same thing, is that you can combo this with any other kind of fight, right?
Yes.
So you can use a weapon, and then you get that ability without paying, the event's cost, which only does 1 damage on its own. So it scales up with your deck as well.
Yeah, which is the big thing, and why there is, like, even though we always say, and we just we're just talking about it, skills and events are very similar. This is the dividing line between them, where it's like, you're not going to have an event that says, like, I mean, you might, we actually are starting to get them, but it's like, take a fight action on like an asset you control, right? And then something else happens. But this is what skills are able to do because of that, and a big reason why Stunning Blow is so good. Yeah, it's no surprise that the deck that Travis, Britt, and I played, where we played every blow that we could, was one of our strongest campaigns. It's because the action compression is just like that valuable at level 0. All right, let's go to your number 4, which is...
Ooh, Summon Servitor. I think this card, when I read about it online, gets a bad rap for not doing much. And I don't understand it. But I've read many people who say this card is bad. Yes, at level 0 it doesn't do anything. And maybe we should have the customizable sheet up here too.
I'm grabbing it right now.
But I just don't get it. Like, this is an extra action in Mystic, which you usually don't get, and that is very strong.
It's
a lot
so
of times,
big.
What I like to do with this, and I kind of learned it from you when you played it in DayZ once, was you just throw it on the corner of the map somewhere, and you just leave it there to clean up clues.
Yep.
And that is, 1 XP? That's not very much to ask for an extra action to investigate. At a higher player count, that it can get actually a lot done. I've played it in a number of decks, and I've always been impressed, especially the off-class ones. And I just think that you can do some fun things that people aren't creative enough, apparently, to take advantage of. So the fact that you're still doing an investigate action, or an evade, or a fight from some other location means that you can do some weird things, like you can have Alice Luxley in play. You can discover a clue, even if it's on the other side of the map, and then you deal damage, basically testlessly, without one of your actions to an enemy at your location, is really funny. But there's just a lot of cool things that you should be interested in trying to take advantage of with this card. And I know it takes up a couple of slots, but you can spend XP to get rid of that too. But yeah, again, it's just an extra action that otherwise you're not usually getting. The base 4 thing also is very good in some investigators, and even when you play this in DayZ, where it was actually a negative, it really wasn't, because you can still commit your own skill cards, magnifying glass, anything else. And I don't know, I've actually never played it with the take 2 different actions instead of 1.
Oh, yeah, it's very good. It's very good,
I'm sure, but I don't think that you have to take it, right? I think you can do plenty of good things with it with all the other upgrades. I know you talked about sometime you'd like to do the dreaming call with Dexter, right?
So yeah, I did that already, actually, when Eric and I did the but I want to do it in a campaign, because in a standalone, when Eric and I did the brood refractions.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I have a lot to say about Summon Servitor. And I don't want to get mean to the people at home, but like, I think you're very right, where people don't see a card that immediately just like takes them to Disneyland, and they're like, this card is bad. I have never played Summon Servitor and regretted it. The card actually is an insane amount of value for a card. You need to put 1 experience into it, right? But like, The unfortunate thing is that just due to the nature of these customizable cards, Summon Servitor is a level 0 card that does nothing. However, it's not a level 0 card. This is a 1 experience card that you need to like be able to trigger, at least like you need to be able to trigger one of these things. So don't look at it as a level 0 card. For the people who say it's a level 0 card, seriously, that does nothing, like, check yourself before you wreck yourself, right?
Yeah.
Let's be real for a few seconds. But at the same time, there are so many, if you put 2 experience to buy either Claws That Catch or Eyes of Flame, depending on what your deck does, and then Wings of Night, you have just basically, like, you've done it. Like that's what you have. Sure, you have to sacrifice something when you get there, but there are so many serviceable things within all the classes that I played that I've never had a problem getting this into play, right? The bounce with Dexter is really nice. Never take the Armored Carapace. I think it's actually a trap for this guy. Him being invincible is so much better than him potentially dying, right?
That's true.
Like one of those things that just him having that ability to just like live forever is really nice. And while I agree, you definitely don't need Daemonic Influence to get it going. It having the ability to move and investigate and take you with it is insane. It's like insane.
Yeah, I have taken the Armored Carapace before, just in off class because I had an extra XP, like an extra box to check. And I think it's fine, like it can be useful, but I just find that even just checking one of these to do an attack or investigate, even the evade might be okay in a pinch.
I think the evade is pretty good too, because it's any enemy based.
It's any enemy.
Yeah, like I think this card is actually like quietly always good. Like I think I definitely agree with you putting it on this list. And
I would say that the fight one, again, people just aren't creative enough about how this works. This is not an investigator or enemy at a location. So I know what Pax did once was spawn cultists with this, right? The location, because it's still an empty location.
And then it just snipes it. Yeah.
Exactly. And you're like, how much action compression do you get out of just that? It's already an extra action. You didn't have to move. It could be an aloof thing, right? It could be a whippoorwill or whatever else.
Yep.
That's a lot of value for the one card. And you should be able to get that kind of thing done multiple times per scenario, no problem.
And this is actually something that, because Travis, Bert, and I, the video might be up on the channel by the time this video's up, but we did our first, they got to look through all the Drowned City cards and finally share their opinions. And they mentioned something about Obscure that I did not see anybody else mention about Obscure. And it's the same thing here with Summon Servitor, where just an extra action at -2 is usually good enough, right? It's like the same thing with like the +2 mode on Cryptographic Cipher, right? Or like the increased Shroud mode. When you can pass those investigation actions, like they're going to be good enough. Like even for example, because correct me if I'm wrong, but Obscure, even though it doesn't say it on the card, you can use other actions with it, right? Like I could use like lockpicks with it, right?
Probably. I don't remember now.
Yeah. But it's like one of those things, like even just an extra ability to use a lockpicks when your number is already going to be so high doesn't really matter if like you're using the Shroud, right? Like even if you go from a 4 to a 3, an extra action is worth it. And that's the same thing here with Eyes of Flame and Daisy. Going from a 5 to a 4 doesn't matter when your deck is built around that thing. So it's like, I was like, you know what? Maybe Obscure is actually going to be more playable because of that. It's just action efficiency.
Now, if you can take advantage of the increase of your base value, which you can in a lot of Mystics, and I did this in Charlie Kane in a whole campaign. It's not an ally, but you can still do off-class Mystic, and it's really good. It's a +3 all the time.
Yeah. No, I think this is a great card for this list. All right, my number 4 is Toe to Toe. Remember how I was talking about Drawn to the Flame earlier? I was like, wait a minute, this card is actually just Drawn to the Flame, but for damage. It actually is, right? Where it's like 0 cost, you get to do it, but there's a downside for it. And it turns out, killing an enemy is a lot better than discovering some clues. Like, it's very nice to discover clues, but like clues, you don't have to rush for those. You are dictating the pace of the game for that. But when an enemy comes and it says, kill me right now, it's easy to just press toe to toe and just kill the guy with it. There's a lot of enemies that I'll use this card on. Like, if they deal 1 and 1, it's no problem. If they deal just 1, it's also no problem. If they deal 2 and 1, but I need that enemy down, I'd like having the option for being able to do this. Just the ability for a 0-cost event to delete an enemy from play is a very powerful effect. And then we're not even talking about all the synergy that can come with an enemy making an attack against you, or the fact that you also can commit cards to this effect, which is very powerful, because it is a fight action, and it's automatically successful. So you still can play in your Vicious Blow to deal 3 damage. You can commit your Overpower to draw cards. You can commit your Overpower 2 to turn this into a super draw cards if you just want to get cards out of this. You can soak it on your Tetsuo Mori to have somebody draw item assets, right? You can put it on your Guard Dog and have it deal extra damage that way. So you can eventually actually delete a 4 health enemy if you also have a Vicious Blow or some other effect to get with this. Toe-to-Toe is a very powerful and versatile card, and it's a card that I'll, without even realizing it, I put into every single one of my Guardian decks. Like, I'm building the deck, and then suddenly I look at the events, and I'm like, when did Toe-to-Toe get in there? It just finds its way.
Yeah, I don't think I have much more to say about this card. It's a banger of a card. I think it's even... I mean, it's also a consideration for anyone who can't fight that well, right? You can do this in Carolyn, and you're like, okay, I can deal with one enemy by myself. That's fine, right?
Yep.
And that's a good option to not have to dip into off-class for her.
Yep. And it's just like one of those things, even just where it's like the ability to kill an acolyte without, like, it not requiring a token pull just means that you have like a guaranteed solution, which is like incredible. Yeah. All right. Let's go to your number 3, which is
Eavesdrop. I think this card is really neat because it ignores Shroud. And I think in most campaigns, there is something that requires you to pass another test, or in order to investigate, like a locked door, or just makes you not be able to investigate some turn. This is just a random test. You can just play this and get 2 clues. Yes, you do need an unengaged enemy at your location. That is not a big ask in Rogue anymore. We have so many more ways to just pull a enemy out of the deck. There's a new one that actually just makes them unengaged altogether, right?
Yeah.
Or no, they're exhausted. They're still engaged with you. But
yes, yeah.
You can combo this with other things like stealth and get this to happen. I think just the basic evade is a fine way to make this happen as well. The evade value of the chosen enemy is usually pretty low, and probably lower than the Shroud if you're bothering to play this card. It only costs 1. Working a hunch costs 2. It only gets you 1 clue. This costs less and an action, and it gets you 2 clues. I think this is like the way a lot of rogues work. Maybe not at the time this card came out, although it worked okay for Finn. But nowadays, I think you can do a lot of really good stuff with this card, and I don't see many people playing it.
I think a big thing too is that the Foot Matters rogue was like slowly and then all at once, right? Where it was just it was just like nothing, and then suddenly where it's like, wait a minute, they can do like everything with their foot, and like evading enemies became very, very like efficient for you to actually do. And then I think as well with the capstone of Alessandra for the archetype, having just like, oh, so now we are going to start seeing cards that we want enemies to stick around for, right? And I think that that's going to be just like further to increase Eavesdrop stuff. Because there's that other card too that's very similar, Followed, yeah, where like it's the damage on the enemy, right?
Yeah, that one's an investigate, right? So that one is a little bit different because it doesn't really ignore any other things that might keep you from investigating. I think it's a fine card too, but it's maybe more for fighters who are in the middle of them fighting. They can get a couple clues out of it. And
that was one of those things because Travis, I remember he played Eavesdrop recently, and he was like, oh, wait a minute, this one's actually good. Because like it and Followed read very similar in their intention, right? Which is like, do something, but you need an enemy there. But this one is just a lot easier to trigger because realistically, you also don't need an enemy engage. You don't need to be the one evading, right? If someone else has unengaged that enemy, whether it be through an evade action or, I don't know, a stunning blow, right? Like those are things that they can do, which also can work with toe-to-toe.
That's true.
To kick the can down the road. It's like very good. And then not to mention as well, like Rogue All-Star Trish, right? she can evade an enemy, and then she can get 4 clues in one turn with this, essentially, right? Like she can like evade the enemy, get a clue, and then like get. So I guess it's only 3, but my number was off for a second. But it's like the same kind of stuff. Like she can turn this into 3 clues.
I think the other knock on this one early on was that passing an intellect test was not really what rogues could do.
Yep.
But that's also not a problem. Again, you build your deck around that. You pick an investigator who's got a 4 already at base, and you could. I mean, most evade values are going to be things like 2 if you're going to bother to play the card. I think it's quite strong.
Yep.
If you're making a test that otherwise would have been 4, maybe 5, or you just were blocked from doing it altogether, it's pretty good. I think it's better at lower player counts because you can clear off a location from this, rather than solving like the locked door also.
I think anything that's discover 2 clues is like it caps at like its peak at 2 players. Like I think that's just like the nature of these effects, and I think that's like unavoidable with just the ARKHAM state as it is now.
Yeah.
All right. My number 3 is Eureka! My favorite skill in the game, barring one that might be later on this list. I don't want to get too deep into... because you and I just recorded a video, and I don't know when this one's coming out or when yours is coming out, but a big topic on that video was the idea that a skill that replaces itself is a powerful effect. At least in my opinion. I don't want to... we'll save yours for the video, but... it's one of those things that this does that on crack, right? Like, it's like, you gotta just, like, draw 3 cards. And this is something that I've been saying for a while, where a very important... This is the weird thing about recording multiple videos in a day, because I feel like I've already said this, but it was a whole different video. Active economy is very powerful to me, because every time, like, I see some sucker drawing 2 cards as an action, and I'm like, I'm going to get a clue and draw 1 card, which I think, for me personally, is a better rate. It's also why I'm such a big fan of Chemistry Set, which, while it didn't make the list, it's only because it's been on all my lists that I've made in the last year. So I think I've evangelized it enough. But it's one of those things that cards that are active, that give me economy while I'm winning the game, are so much more powerful to me, and Eureka is an example of that. Eureka is a card that I'm happy to bring into Scenario 8. That's kind of like the rule for these cards, is I want them to all be in my deck in Scenario 8. And this just, well, yeah, I only get 1 card out of it. I'm gonna just use this in an Investigate action and turn it into one of my experience cards and win the game quicker because of that.
Can I ask you a silly question?
Yeah.
So this is one of those few cards that makes the performing investigator do it instead of the card owner. Does that change this card for you, or do you just always use it on yourself?
No, I'll use it on other people. Like, if my hand's loaded, like if I have like 7 cards in hand or 6 cards in hands, or I have my important pieces in play, I'll throw it at someone else in a heartbeat, because I'll just be like, at that point, it's about helping the team as well, right? Because if I don't need the 3, like, if I don't need the 1 of 3, someone else might. And, like, you'll see this most commonly where, like, I'll give it to my flex if I'm playing. Because I usually play this as the main investigator just because I use it for the book. It's just like, I don't have to think. I just, like, put it on the test. But if they're, like, investigating or evading, or, like, even to help it against, like, a rotting remains, it's, like, one of those things, like, or a frozen and fear, right? Like, it's very nice to help with those things as well.
I actually think that the 1 icon compared to the 2 icons on the core set skills is totally fine here because of the filtered card draw, but also because it has flexibility for which test you use it on. You're not holding this back, really. You're just using on whichever one comes up that you've got a pretty good chance of passing. And even sometimes just +1 on a skill test gets you to a break point in the bag where you will pass, right? And you didn't need to. 1 is fine.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. All right. Let's go to your number 2, which is...
Okay, let me make sure I'm clear about connect the dots here. I don't think this card is, like, great. I think it's a fun card that does a lot, and you feel really good about making this fire off. That's why I like to talk to people about it, because it actually is a really good effect. If you can envision the scenario in which you make this happen, which I think is fun to engineer, then it's a good card. I wish it were a little cheaper, or we had an upgraded version or something to make it a little bit easier to do this. But at the same time, if you can load a deck with a bunch of money and you run around the map a bit, it can do some good stuff. I had a Jenny Barnes deck some time ago that played this and double just to sit on one location, collect all the money, and then fire this off, and you get a ton of clues at once, and you're like, well, all right, I got them all eventually. But it was kind of fun. So, yeah, I don't think it's a strong card, but I think it is a card that does a lot when you put some work into it, and it feels really fun to make it happen.
So, yeah, I think, as always with Connect the Dots, you have to say the thing, exactly what you said, the caveat, where it's just like, there is something that happened in testing that they put on too many knobs after, like, they tried some things out, and unfortunately, it just, like, has killed the card, right? For, like, general play. It's fine and still building around, like you said. Because it is very fun when it does trigger. I'm not going to disagree with you in that in the slightest. During Seeker Week, there was a custom investigator designed by AUG that you could use relics and occult items to like tap and pay for events. And I was like, I built that deck, and part of it was using Connect the Dots, and I'm like, that same thing where I was like, man, I wish this card was like had more decks that you could take advantage of it in as printed, because like it's a very fun effect. To go with what we were just saying about your last card we were talking about, Eavesdrop, it's just that discovering 2 clues always feels like a nice effect at most player counts, obviously most at 2-player, but being able to have that trigger and like being able to see that go, especially with a card like Connect the Dots, does feel very fulfilling.
Yeah, I kind of wish they got rid of the lower printed shroud part.
I think so. If it was just 4, like, so I feel like it was one of those things where it was like 2 cost and it was lower printed shroud, and then they were like, that's too good, we got to bump it up to 4, because like Joe Diamond playing it for free, it was not good, right? Because I feel like, unfortunately, this card was punished for the sins of Joe Diamond, but Joe Diamond doesn't really sin that much, but they still really killed the card.
It's even hard to fire it off in him out of the hunch deck, because you have to have everything in the right spot at the right time.
Yeah, and
I played it with Monterey Jack back in the day when he was first released, and paid for it with Crafty, because he does want to run around the map a bit. But it felt like it was a lot of weight at level 0 in the deck, where that could have been something else, but it was still fun to do it in 3-player. It worked out okay.
I think I brought it to, because Bryn and I have recorded and finished our second run at events only. And I think I brought it in that deck, and I think I used it to good success there, but I don't remember because it's been over a year at this point. And it still hasn't gone live. It should go live soon, hopefully, but I think this is a good choice too, because this is a card that I wish was just not balanced the way that it was. Yeah. All right, let's go to my number 2. Hey, you guys all liked Eureka. What about the rogue equivalent of Watch This? So basically copy and paste what I said about the last one, in terms of like active economy, where like now in my rogues, I don't play Faustian Bargain. I rarely play Emergency Cash because it's just not good enough. Which is kind of crazy when you look at Watch This and you're like, yeah, but Justin, this is just like a bad Emergency Cash. And to that I say, no, this is an Emergency Cash that also gives me a clue.
And it's fast.
Right? That's like the thing, right? Like all this stuff is fast, and I'm like doing it, I'm winning it, I'm killing it. And I don't think about the times I've lost Watch This, because that is you can't have the high highs if you're focusing on the occasional low, right? So like I'm getting 3 resources from this. It's only giving you 3, but I played this back when it even first came out. I played it all the time, and I would argue that now it's so much easier to trigger than it was like back in the day. Like once again, when the rogues became that everything uses foot, it's like, oh, well, then there's no reason for me to not play Watch This. And I think not enough people are playing Watch This because they're too focused on like, what if I lose? But if you lose, you just keep going and you'll make up for it in other ways, because that's just how rogues are able to do things now.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think of the new one? The upgraded version.
It's good. I have 2 qualms with it. One is that it feels weird to be able to use on an investigate test. It's like, hey, watch this magnifying glass. You know, like that's not really exactly like hype as hell, right? And 2, I wish it gave you a bit more money out of it for the price to be worth it, I think. I was hyped as hell when I saw it, but I was like, oh, this is just like nothing changes. It basically just means that I'm going to be actually correct when I accidentally commit it to a lockpicks test.
Yeah, I think turning them all into wild icons helps you pass the test slightly better. It's like a +2. But you could do that with 3XP in other ways in Rogue, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because like to me that's the big thing where I was just like already passing all my watch this tests, so like just being able to use it for investigates is going to be good. Like I'm going to upgrade for sure into it. Like especially if I'm playing like skids, parallel skids, because I always do underworld support for him because it's a drug I can't say no to. It just feels so good.
So it's a gambit that you can keep a lower level version in?
No, I would just play it because then I could use it for my ability for 3 icons, for 3 wilds as opposed to just 1. Yeah, so like that's the thing. So I could gamble and gamble 6 of my money as opposed to just a 4, which I usually do with skids.
Yeah, I think again the upgrade. I mean, 3 XP is a lot, but if you get more value out of the extra icons, it's good. Otherwise, I agree with you.
And I mean, at a certain point, because I'm so XP light in my builds that I'm like, I'm gonna put in another day, another dollar. Yeah. But now I can just be like, oh, I guess I'll do the watch this first, and then eventually I'll do another day, another dollar. Yeah.
It's a good card. I do like the comment about like how do you do this with an investigation, but I've done it with I think it was Gloria maybe because she can run this at level 0 with the Rite of Seeking. Yeah. It's kind of funny because you're like, watch this. I'm gonna go do my little ritual over here.
Or watch this and like her eyes grow big and she examines the entire room. It's like what the frick? But I mean, also like especially this card went up stonks with Thieves Kit 2, right? Which is like very nice at just generating passive income while also winning the game. Very nice effects. All right, last one on your list, and I'll get up the side card too, but we got Empty Vessel.
Yeah, every time I played this card, it was bonkers. And we probably need to look at the other version to explain why.
Let's see if I have one saved on my computer. If not, we're going to have to pause and bring this up.
Okay, I'll wing it. So the cost of 4 XP is kind of a lot, but the accessory slot in Guardian or other investigators who can take this, which is actually quite a few interesting cases, is I don't know, it's okay, right? That part's not the big deal, but when you realize what the Wish Eater does for you in campaigns that put tons of tokens in, it's crazy how much it triggers and you just stop caring about dying anymore. After you defeat an enemy, placing a charge on here is not the biggest ask of Guardians. You could probably do this a lot if you are playing a higher player count, especially.
All right, I'm going to just pause you for a second, and we're going to get this on the screen, because I have every card from Dream Eater saved except Wish Eater. Okay, it's very tiny, but I'll make it bigger. All right, keep going.
Okay. Well, clearly I need to evangelize about this more because you didn't have it saved on your computer yet.
Yeah.
All right. So the other version of it, when you reveal a Skull Cultist, a Tablet, or Elder Thing Chaos token during a skill test, spend a charge. There's always going to be 3 here. Maybe more. It could happen. You spend a charge, then there'll be fewer. Cancel that Chaos token, meaning no modifier, no bad thing, and then you heal a damage and a horror. You just never die after this is in play. And I played this in Scarlet Keys recently, and you fill the bag up with a bunch of extremely annoying tokens, especially the cultists in that campaign. You just don't worry about them. If I draw that, then cool, I'll just cancel it and heal damage and a horror. I don't know, man. This is just like extremely strong every time I've used it, and I don't know why people don't run this a lot more. I think it's tough to find a one of in Guardian. That might be part of it, but
yep, that's I think the big reason. But when you find it, it's very good. This is actually a card that I talked about very recently on the channel, and by recently I mean probably like 4 months ago, which is cards to Guardian that deserve a second chance. And I think Wish Eater and Empty Vessel are 2 very good examples of that. It's a very, very powerful effect. and I've never been upset when someone's played it. I know someone brought it to it. I bring it up every time, but someone brought it as an Akachi to a Patreon game day, and that was I was like, damn, that's pretty sick. Like, she gets the extra charge on it when it comes into play. But I think especially now with all of the like, let's put like a little pin in this and like look back at this card next year with like Leo Anderson. He now has 4 tutor effects in Rogue, so in 4 copies of his deck, so we can have Where's the Party and Kick in the Hornet's Nest. And then he also has On the Hunt, and you can get the level 3 version. And the idea is that and even First Watch, he's just like, I am the hunter of enemies, and I'm going to get major rewards for it, you know? And I suppose like Zoe could do this too, right? Because she could use her dunnage slots for it. And then she also gets economy out of her ability. It's just a matter of finding the empty vessel, which is always the sticky part. But I mean, there's going to be more options that it might be possible to do this, make it more consistent.
I also just think that the token cancellation, I don't even know. Like, I don't know which part is the stronger part of this effect, right? I like the healing the damage in horror without a card. I mean, think about Hollowed Mirror as the alternative slot that people usually, a card that you put in this slot. That costs an action to play.
Yep.
Doesn't cost any resources, but you have to find those. So this just feels better in many cases. Plus, you get because it's just an actionless heal, and then you get to cancel some bad tokens. I mean, look, if you're playing a deck that doesn't care about drawing those tokens because you're just way up on every test, then fine, doesn't really do much. But like I said, in Scarlet Keys especially, there's a lot of those tokens, and their modifiers are enormous. Yep. And if you're turning a bag full of -5s into nothings, you can just take a lot of tests and just pass tests. It's really fantastic.
Yeah, I think this is something that whenever Travis brings us up to, it's always just like, to answer your question of I don't know what the best part of the card is, and the answer is just yes. Like, it's every part's good. Like, the canceling is insane, the healing is insane, and like it's a bonded card that feels like really nice for like what it does, and then you can just like start working on it to get back. And if you're confident, like, I would love to see like a version of this deck where it's just like enemy crazy, and then you like don't flip until you have like 6 charges on here, you know? It's just like, I'm gonna go nuts. Yeah. And
you can do some stupid things here. When I played this recently in Ursula, you're like, wait a minute, what are you doing defeating enemies in Ursula? You don't. You move charges from other things over to this.
Yes. Yeah.
I played correlate all its contents to throw extra charges onto it, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I can let this live forever and not have to worry about it swapping back.
Yeah, you can put charges on it on the second half because it has it like, so like even like the new Enraptured with like Sister Mary, she could just go freaking nuts with it too. Spicy.
Yeah.
No, I'm a big fan of Jew Empty Vessel and Wish Eater.
It's blessed also, so if you care about that for some reason, like the slot for Occult Reliquary, then that's cool.
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. All right, let's go to my number 1, last one on the list, and this is a card that I feel like I'm the only person in the entire ARKHAM community actually talking about. When you brought this list video to me, this is the one that I knew was my number 1, because I always put it in my decks, and everyone's like, Justin, you're the guy, you're the only person I've ever seen play this card, and that's Emergency Cash level 2. Because if I'm going to play my Emergency Cash, I want it to replace itself. The skills, Overpower, Perception, those are really good because they cantrip and they replace themselves. Just turning my economy into an actual card draw as well, so it replaces itself. I have to spend the action to do it, but it turns into something else, is huge for me. Just having like now my deck be that much more consistent because my Emergency Cash is also now replacing itself is ginormous. And for me, it's worth that 2 experience at a certain point. Once I get the core of my deck in, I want to be able to find and play that deck better. So it's like one of those things where making my economy better is going to make that more efficient. We always say, do not cut your economy. And I think we need to go a step above, which is you should focus on upgrading your economy because it's going to make your deck actually better in the long run.
Yeah. I agree with everything you said, specifically about the part that no one else plays this card.
Yeah. It's
in the revised core now, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I think I think it's nice to have all of the economy on one card, so you're not cobbling together other parts of the deck to try to get what you need. So it's a good upgrade. I don't know if it's, I don't know when I do it. I do usually do it in decks that were running level 0 emergency cash because it was for some reason. Like it's a supply, so it can go on to stick to the plan.
And backpack as well. Yeah.
And backpack. So it's a really nice opening round if you have e-cash level 2. You get 3 resources, draw a card, and the next round you play Ever Vigilant. It can be quite good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things where, if, in my opinion, if you're playing backpack and you're not playing emergency cash 2, you're actually making a mistake.
Yeah.
It's like it's so good. And then also, this is a big shout out to anyone who doesn't believe I'm a spike. This is one of my favorite cards in the game. Can you imagine any Timmy or Johnny saying that about emergency cash? Like this is what I'm saying. Like you got to just trust me when I say it, because emergency cash level 2 to me is one of the strongest cards in the game, and I think it's one of my favorites because of that reason.
All right.
Yeah.
Are you ready for?
Yeah. Let's see how you did.
All right. I'm gonna open up the envelope and I'm gonna read off. Here they are. Wow. All right. I did okay. Not perfect. But my number 1 was emergency cash level 2.
Let's go! Yeah, hell yeah!
My other one that I hit was stunning blow.
Yes, yeah.
So I got 2 out of 5. Here are the other 3. Sweeping kick.
Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah.
Which probably maybe I maybe didn't want to overlap with stunning blow, but I guess I was not creative enough with that. Other one was perception 2.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And the Jewel of Aureolus was my last one.
That is another good one. So the reason, like those, if I had to look at experience cards, that would be the case. But for me, this list, I was looking at level 0 cards, like specifically, except for emergency cash, because to me, they're the ones that like I really like stick to, like the level 0 cards that, because a lot of people like to cut cards from their deck, but for me, like I look at those cards and I'm like, these are cards that I'm staying for the entire time. But Jewel of Aureolus is a good shout. That one is one that I do think is criminally underplayed, especially with the taboo.
Yeah, that kind of fits into your discussion about upgrading your economy. That's what it's there for, right?
Yeah, and it also fits with like my economy that I can do while also winning the game, right? That's a big thing. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're gonna like Antithecara then.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, 100%. No, that card is. I don't think it's overpowered. I think it's actually very reasonably powered for what it does. But it's very much the upgraded chemistry set that I'm like, wow, there's everything I've wanted right there. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
I mean, getting number 1 is huge. Like specifically getting my number 1, like that's worth enough points that your prediction, I think, nailed it.
Yeah. Were there any ones that were a surprise to you on my list?
Oh, no, I don't think so. Like a Perception 2, I think definitely makes sense. But I think that card is already, there's already a Goss, like a Church of Perception 2, so I don't need to feel about that. But Sweeping Kick and Jewel of Aureolus are 2 good shouts as well.
I just remember when we played Edge of the Earth together and you played Charlie Kane, even with the sealed card pool, you were like, what am I going to do for my first upgrade? I think you put Perception 2 in there just because you're like, yeah, I'm just going to go for this. It's a good card. And
yeah, it makes us get me clues better. Makes us win more.
But it doesn't, like, to me, that doesn't ring like this is what you put in Charlie Kane. And yet, it was a Justin card to put into a Charlie Kane deck. It's
true. No, yeah, I think all 5 of your predictions were very accurate. 2 incredibly accurate. Yeah. Sweet. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this. You should go check out Quick Learner's channel. We have a bunch of videos there too. So if you want to see us talk more, we made it 43 minutes. This is the list videos always go long with us, but we love to yap. So
we are yappers.
We are. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you want to support the channel, you can do so by liking, commenting, subscribing. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Have a good one. We'll see you for the next list video. And as always, the GGs.